Hi, Aaron.
Hey,
How you
Hello.
doing? Hi, Tim.
How are you?
Good, bud. How are you?
Good.
Just trying to get over this snow dumping we just got in Calgary, Alberta.
Oh my goodness. Oh. Mm.
Snow shoveling. Whoa, brutal.
Oh. It's cold here, but not any snow, so that's good.
We live, coming at you from New Zealand.
Hey, emphatic.
Hey guys, how you going?
Not bad, emphatic. How are you?
Pretty cool, pretty cool. Pretty good. It's a beautiful day down here. The sun's out. The planet's still good.
Nice.
How's
Oh,
it going,
good.
Tim? I heard some of your stuff was sounding pretty good there, mate. Bit of a different approach. Cool.
Yep.
Hey Jared, how are you, man?
So what's the weather like tomorrow?
We live and direct.
They call you?
No, it's beautiful, beautiful, beautiful.
Nice and sunny here now in Calgary, Alberta. Now that we got dumped on.
Ah, that's nice.
2 days of dumping of snow.
Oh, really? First
Yeah.
one. Oh, the ski season will be hotting up, eh?
A lot of snow shoveling.
Oh, wow. Okay. Hey, you get snowed in for winter and write some cool songs.
Yeah.
All these people in Jimmy Jam before the call.
What did he say?
Oh, he's talking to someone on the phone, I think.
Oh, okay. Oh, there's Dan.
I'll show you what the day's like outside. I think the day is
How
sunny.
you doing, Dan? He's not answering.
There's the sun outside. Out the back.
What's up, you guys?
Summer's just starting down here.
Summer's just starting down there?
Yeah, it's just like the first 2 hot days we've had.
Hey, what's up? What's up, everybody? How's it going? Hey, good afternoon. Make sure I don't have anything in my teeth. I just jackfruit bowl. Sorry to interrupt the conversation, but I'm in space here. Actually, I'm still out in outer space. Let me change this. Saw the backgrounds. Zoom's got this really silly virtual background thing. I can change it to the San Francisco Bay. It looks like some grass. Oh, hey, hang on. I'm going to go into a new studio here. All right, I'm done. Yeah, hope you all are doing great. I'm having a fantastic day so far. Really great to be here. And let's just start. What you got for me? Let me know what questions you got. What's up, Anthony?
What's up, dude?
Hey. I can't hear you now.
Can you hear me now?
Sure can. How's it going, man?
Good. How's it going, man?
Great, great.
I like those backgrounds. I
mean, I don't know if they compare to yours, but yeah, I don't know if I really feel like putting myself in apocalypse, but
I like that San Francisco one. That one's awesome.
yeah, pretty cool.
Yeah, I like the San Francisco one. Okay, so I'm trying to set up my studio. And can you hear me?
Sure. Yeah.
Okay, so I'm trying to set up my studio. I've got like Logic Pro. I've got I'm getting ready to get like a MIDI keyboard. And I'm thinking about getting like a few like essential plugins, you know, like to get started. And maybe I have like, I might have like maybe $1,000 to get maybe some essential plugins. And I want to be able to do everything within Logic, like mix, master, like sort of everything in the box. What is there anything, or what would you recommend? Like if you were in my situation and you just had like a limited money on maybe getting, you know, to get started with being able to master, mix, master the whole thing?
Sure. So a few of the things I would consider doing if I were you was like to not spend all that $1,000. Honestly, spending $1,000 on plugins, especially when you're first starting out, probably isn't going to be the best move. You'd probably be better off investing that money in a better microphone, or especially if you're using Logic, because Logic has a ton of good plugins that are just built in. There's a graphic EQ that's literally just built into Logic that is pretty good. So, I would say that you should use the base plugins in Logic to learn the principles of how these plugins work and how to best apply them in your situation. And then as plugins, typically like what I suggest is just waiting until there's like big sales, and there's always sales on stuff. Black Friday's coming up. Guaranteed there's going to be huge sales on like almost all the platforms. Waves is probably going to give away some cool stuff. Waves is probably I would say like if you are going to buy some plugins, you should probably buy them from kind of like the places that where like a lot of the tools are. Sound Toys, if Sound Toys has a deal, I find like their stuff consistently helpful. Pretty much all their plugins are awesome, and they're not very expensive either. So they had some kind of bundle deal where you could pick up some plugins from Sound Toys. That would be a good one. I don't know how good, I don't use Logic very much, so I don't really know how good their built-in delay or reverbs are. Sound Toys doesn't make it a reverb, but they do everything else really well.
What about that like Ozone Elements or whatever it is?
Yeah, well, so I was going to say like on the mastering side of things, Ozone Elements would be a really good pickup. It's just a simple, in one plugin, you'll get both like an EQ, you'll get a mastering EQ, you'll get a kind of a stereoizer, and you'll get a limiter. So brick wall limiter. So it's pretty good. There's some cool presets you can play around with and get some cool sounds. I think like, as far as like bang for the buck, it's a good one. You could pair that with like L2 from like Waves if you wanted to stage it a little bit. I usually put the L2 on the very end of my mastering chain, no matter what I'm doing.
What's an L2?
It's a Waves plugin. So Waves is a great plugin manufacturer. They usually give away, I mean, their plugins are very, very affordable, and they typically do like fire sale kind of sales pretty regularly on stuff, and it's all pretty, I do use their plugins quite a bit. Some of them are more useful than others. Some of the bundles, they give you a bunch of stuff that you'll never use, but yeah, it's great. They make a lot of good stuff. I think like as far as like things that you might have a hard time finding in the stock plugins that are in Logic, finding a good harmonic distortion would probably be good. And that's where the Sonic Toys or the Sound Toys would be really good, because Decapitator is like one of the best plugins in my opinion. It's probably one of the most useful plugins that I own. And it's, once again, very affordable. Use it on all different kinds of stuff, everything from vocals to drums to bass, pretty much anything you could imagine to kind of help stuff pop out of a mix. And then just like you need to have some type of tuning plugin. So I know Waves makes one. I've never used it. You could always look to invest in like Auto-Tune.
Like Melodyne or something?
Well, Melodyne, I don't think Melodyne is as the way I tune vocals, and this is the way a lot of folks tune vocals, is they'll use Melodyne for kind of the fine tuning, or the kind of like rough tuning, and then you use the auto tune to kind of catch anything that the Melodyne doesn't catch through like the edits that you make. And when I'm talking about this, I'm talking about this is like a very not auto tune as like an effect, but auto tune as like a tuning plugin. Which is what I mostly use it for. But there are also plugins that they make a version of Auto-Tune that's very low latency that you can track with. So if you're doing stuff that's like urban, super pop, and you want that really thick Auto-Tune effect on the actual vocal, it's way better to track it real time. You're actually not going to get the same performance at all. It's not going to sound right. So in that case, like depending on if you're making that kind of music, you would want to have the real time Auto-Tune plugin that's available. And then I think honestly, I think that spending a bunch on plugins is not the best. Not the best.
I mean, cause that Ozone, that thing's like $1,000 within itself, that production suite.
Oh, I wouldn't buy that. I would buy buy Ozone Elements. It's like when it's on sale, I think it's like $99.
Is that the mastering one?
It's it's for your end.
Okay, so it's only like $100.
I don't know what it is right now, but usually the Elements version usually sells for somewhere between like, I think it retails for $129, but don't quote me on that.
Okay, all right.
I would consider, like, if I was just starting out, not buying any plugins at all and seeing just kind of like what I naturally need a better version of. Eventually you're probably going to want some more options for reverb, and there's some cheaper reverbs out there that are pretty good. The Valhalla ones are really good. Valhalla Vintage Verb is good. Actually the Slate, here's another thing you could think about is getting the Slate bundle. It's like $15 a month, and it includes like some really good reverbs in addition to a bunch of other plugins.
Does that have like mastering stuff too, like for mastering?
Yes and no. There's some stuff you can, there's definitely like a mastering compressor that you can put on the back end of the stuff. I haven't really played around with it too much. I've started incorporating it in, but you would probably want more than just like what what the Slate stuff offers. But I still haven't like completely, I just got it like a month or so ago. So I'm still playing around with some of the stuff. My opinion might change wildly on that.
Okay. So, but the one that's $1,000, the Ozone Elements 9 or whatever, that's just like too much stuff.
Need to buy that now. I mean, do you want to become a professional mastering engineer? Is that what your goal is?
No, not really. No.
If your goal is to become a professional mastering engineer, I wouldn't buy software that kind of belongs in the toolkit of a mastering engineer. Honestly, okay. It's like what tools do you need to do the job that you're tasking yourself to do? If you're an independent producer who's trying to do everything in the box, if you decide you want to take your mastering to another level, you should just hire a mastering engineer to master your mixes.
Okay.
Yeah, that'd be my opinion on that.
Cool. Thanks, man.
Yeah, of course. You're welcome. Great question. Hey, Benjamin, what's up?
Hey, man. How you going?
I'm good. Good. How are you?
I'm good. I'm glad to finally be catching one of these live, because the daylight savings means you're not at 5 a.m. anymore.
Hey, that's good.
Couple of quick things. First of all, it was great to hear you talking about how to stack gang vocals the other week. But then in one of the listening sessions last week, you were talking about how you felt like just some of the lead wasn't stacked enough. So I'm feeling like a lot of the stuff I'm going to be doing definitely is going to require gang vocals, but I wanted to just suss out to stack or not to stack. When should you be stacking just the lead?
What kind of music is it?
Well, I'm going to be kind of going for the sort of Kaleo, Rag and Bone Man, that kind of like, I still don't quite know how to describe it, but it's sort of like a mix of modern blues, soul, rock vibes.
Yeah, I think something like that could either, depending on the vocalist, could either be a solo vocal or it could be like a doubled vocal in parts. That's kind of what I would more be leaning towards versus like, I don't think it would be appropriate to do a stack of 8 vocals for the lead on that unless you really wanted to. I think it would, the chances of you sapping the soul and the kind of like the feeling out of the performance is too great of a risk.
Okay, because I mean,
I don't think it would too well, but
the one that you mentioned it on was it was a sort of female vocal that I'd have to look back and check the song, I guess. But okay, well that's good to know that maybe solo is good, except for when you're doing the gang vocals. Gang
vocal is different than a lead vocal. So gang
vocal. No, I get that for sure. But that's what I should be stacking is the gang vocals, not the lead vocal.
Probably.
Okay.
Yeah, for a track like that, I mean, I would think when I'm tracking a song that kind of sounds like it's in the neighborhood of what you're talking about, I would probably like the vocalist, the timbre of the vocal is probably super important, and the emotion of like the individual performance I feel would be like more important to get right versus like necessarily stacking something. But I think it could be cool to like, you know, have parts of the song be stacked, especially like in the hooks or something like that.
Yeah, I guess a lot of it has like, yeah, sort of more tender verses and pre's and stuff like that, but then go big in the chorus. So
I mean, heck, you could do bigger stacks. If it's the bigger it is, the bigger the stacks could be. But
yeah,
the stacks got to be tight, or else they're not gonna sound strong. They're gonna phase with each other, and they're gonna potentially sound weaker.
yeah, getting them
done well. If stacks that aren't lined up well, just performance wise, as well as like from an editing perspective, they can sound sloppy and unprofessional and detract from your song.
Yeah, okay. Another quick question. I know you've been talking about how you're going to be at the bar at Taxi a lot. Can you just give us a quick rundown of when you're going to be there? Because I've got a partner in crime who's going to bring something for you.
Hopefully it's a good thing. I'm gonna be I'll be there on like Friday and Saturday, pretty much all day. I'm gonna be there like from beginning to end of the day. I'm planning to anyways. Anyways, anybody who comes to Taxi, I'd love to meet you, and I'd love to hang. Actually, you know, yeah, I think I might even like post if anybody has trouble finding me, just like message me on Facebook, and but I'm sure I'll be at the bar for a good part of the time, and checking out some of the panels some of the other times. But yeah, I look forward to checking it, to meeting some of the folks here in person for the first time. It'll be great. I'm excited.
Cool. Well, I'm giving Laurie Geltman my spare ticket because I'm stuck over here.
It's very generous of you to do that. Thanks for that.
Keep an eye out for her because she's got something for you. Cool, man. Thanks.
Thanks, and great question, man.
Cheers.
Cheers. Really glad you could join us this week. It's been kind of weird, the whole daylight savings time. I've been waking up at like 7 o'clock in the morning. Actually, I woke up at 6:30 this morning, and it's very not my usual schedule. But here I am. Sorry, so I'm a little tired, but life is good. Life is good. Let's see, Brett. Brett, what's up, man? Brett.
Hey, man, how you doing?
Hey, I'm good. How are you?
Good. Yeah, really well, thanks. Quick question for you, John. I'm just looking at researching different libraries, places I might want to kind of pitch when I get an EP set up.
Sure.
I just had a quick question just about what they charge. Like, so, and when I say that, like, I look at a couple of them, and they're like charging only like $5 for a song, right? So somebody comes in there and like they're charging $5 to like $20-$40 per song. And then I'm wondering how it goes with supervisors if they're looking through different libraries, if your music's placed there and they have a budget of a lot more.
Sure.
Do they only pay you then that $40 that the song is going for?
I suppose that's the risk you run if you do any song that you put in a royalty-free library. Theoretically, a production company could go in and grab it, and then you're potentially out more money if you hold on to those for later. But for me, anyways, large parts of my library, I don't really care that much. I'm not that precious about it. So it's something you have to weigh for yourself. I think that there's also possibilities that you could have your stuff in a royalty-free library, and the company that wants to use it has no idea it's even in there. And, you know, they'll pay you whatever it is they were going to pay you.
Right.
Because it's, you know, if you sign an agreement with somebody, that there might be stipulations. This can sometimes factor in where there's stipulations that, for example, if you had like a song that was being used in like a Coke ad or something like that, they might have the stipulation that your song can't be used in any beverage related thing for like 2 years after or something like that, which you have that song in some royalty free libraries might make things a little problematic. So that's the thing. You gotta be smart about like what you're putting where, and you know, but at the same time too, I think it's smart to and wise to diversify your assets and always keep building them. And I think to completely like give up on the idea that I feel like there's money out there that's literally just kind of sitting around. If you take the time to put it into these kind of smaller places, can be worth your time. So I think it's good that you're looking into them. And, but you know, some of the better ones pay a lot more than like $5 for a track. I don't know if I would want to put my songs in a library where they're only charging $5 for it.
Yeah.
Might want to look into some ones that are paying a little bit better.
Right.
Because it might be better for you. Unless plus it takes a lot of time sometimes to enter your songs into a library. And I don't know how many songs you're talking about, but I've got like a couple hundred songs, and taking a pretty good chunk of my songs and putting them in a library takes days. So
Right.
you just gotta weigh your resources and then make the best decisions that you can. Does that help?
That's perfect. Yeah. Thanks a lot, man.
Yeah, of course, man.
Appreciate it.
I love the question. Great question. Hey, Annette.
Hello there. Can you hear me?
I can. Hey.
Okay. Hi. I have a question about genre classification.
Mm-hmm.
So that song Anchor from Nova Amor that you put up on the Monday Music Breakdown a couple weeks ago, which is a beautiful song. I'm kind of leaning more towards that genre, whatever it is, and I'm trying to figure out how to, well, I guess classify, you know, when I put some stuff on Taxi to go, not Taxi, CD Baby to go to Spotify recently. And it's like, there was only very general genre descriptions. And then there were subgenres that you could pull down. And singer-songwriter, which is pretty wide open, was a subgenre. And there was like folk and there was pop, but then you had to pick a subgenre of singer-songwriter for that. So I'm just wondering where you would put like Anchor, because it's kind of the same vibe, you know?
I mean, I'd have to, I can't think of the song like in my head at this second. So actually have to listen to it.
Oh, it was this song. It had like a video where he pulls this chick out of the ocean.
Yeah. I loved the song when I listened to it. It's just like, I listened to so much music. It's like,
yeah, you're right. That's kind of crazy. So,
I have an opinion about that, but I will say this one thing about cause I noticed that I used to release stuff on CD Baby, and some platforms, when you enter stuff in, it's like, sometimes you have to just, it's a little weird figuring out like what bucket it fits in, because like maybe their categories aren't like as detailed as they could be.
Yeah.
Found that CD Baby, when things might have changed since the last time I used it was years ago, but I do remember like when I was categorizing my songs, I was like, these categories seem super general and kind of hard to kind of put something in. So that could have something to do with it. And then if you want, I'm happy to like take a listen to the song after the session's over and give you like my feedback on that. So
okay.
Yeah, no problem there.
Cool.
Yeah. And as far as like, categorizing your stuff in the future, it's just, you'll figure it out. You'll figure out what your lane is. And sometimes it's hard to exactly nail down exactly what the vibe is, but it should be pretty easy to understand like what the kind of like the base bucket that it fits in. And then some of them, like some singer-songwriter genre in general, there's like probably like, there's at least half a dozen that I could probably think of off the top of my head of like different variations of singer-songwriter stuff. So It's like, just you'll figure it out, but I can help you out with that. If you want to know my opinion on like where that particular song would be, I'd be happy to do that. I'm gonna make a note for that.
Thank you.
Yeah, of course. And that Anchor genre. Got it. Thanks for the question.
Yeah, thanks so much.
Yeah, of course. Dave, what's up, man? Dave J.
Hey, Jen. Thanks for all the useful info.
Of course, yeah.
You've been mentioning some of the plugins that you use and different effects that you might use on vocals. I was wondering, are there any that you would avoid because they make the track sound dated? Thinking of, like maybe vocal effects or...
I guess like reverbs can kind of make a sound dated sometimes. Just the type of reverb that's used might sound like a older kind of choice. that puts it in a like older but not vintage in like a cool way. I'm trying to think of like the specific type of reverb that would sound like that, but maybe something that you'd hear on like power ballads from like the 80s or something like that. It's like a certain sound of reverb that's maybe a little too much reverb, and it's maybe a little too full, perhaps.
Right.
I'm just trying to think of the way in which it sounds to me when I hear it. You know, I'm not an expert on every type of reverb and the specific type of reverb when I hear it. I just know I trust my ears. I've always been a person where I'm like, this sounds cool or it doesn't. And yeah, it's just kind of refined for me. Like part of like getting a good, like for example, like I guess maybe it would be easier for me to explain what I feel sounds cool typically on a vocal in terms of reverb.
Yeah.
You know, it depends. Obviously, I'm going to do a blend of different reverbs on pretty much every vocal. I think that's one of the tricks is having a blend of vocals that can really help set aside or it can really help elevate a vocal and help fill out a space, especially like right now there's so much stuff where it's like the vocal's really exposed and it's like expected to take up a lot of space. So what I'm doing is I'm using everything from like room reverbs, large room reverbs to I'll typically start with like a slap delay, which is a form in a way it's a reverb. It kind of like livens it up a little bit. A slap delay, for anybody who doesn't know what it is, it's kind of like it's almost like an immediate delay of the vocal. So what it does is it creates kind of this, like you're in a garage, you're like kind of, gives it kind of a raw feel, like you're in a live room. It's like really like, it's like, hey, I'm in a room and this is a performance. And what it does is it kind of, even if you just like blend it in just a little bit, I find it kind of livens up the vocal a little bit sometimes. So I'll like that sometimes. I'll like it not sometimes. Depends on the vocal. Next thing I'll usually do is I'll put some type of either a plate or like a hall reverb, some type of reverb that's just like kind of your standard. If I want more of like a vintage sound, I'll maybe go for a plate versus like if I want something that sounds a little more, I might go with a hall or a chamber or like play around with like different other type medium type reverbs, just to get something that like has a little more tail to it. And then what I'll do a lot of the time too is I'll add like, especially if it's like kind of a darker track and it's one where the vocal is expected to kind of carry a lot of what's the emotional weight that's going on. I'll give it like kind of like a longer tail with either like a cathedral reverb or I'll use like what's called a shimmer reverb. So like Valhalla's Shimmer is a really good example of that. It's like one that's like just like has like a really long tail to it. And then you blend taste appropriately. Blend to your taste. You can even throw it in the room. I'll sometimes just use a room reverb as like the main, there's no rules to it. Sometimes I'll literally use a room reverb as the only reverb on the vocal. But I think that like, so for me, it's a blend between I either go with something that's kind of unexpected or cool sounding, and then just like trust my ears, or I usually go for something that's like, to get that kind of modern polish to the vocal, and especially with the vocals that they're being expected to like hold a lot of weight now in like the overall production on a lot of tracks now. It's like giving it that kind of tail but also giving it that complexity to the reverb is like what kind of helps set it aside for me, and it kind of elevates it from like something that sounds like amateur and maybe dated to something that's modern and sounds cool.
Yeah. Because I'm coming from like a rock background, and Tim, who I'm working with, who's doing the vocals, we're sort of breaking away and doing a more modern sound now. So what we want to do is capture that more modern sounding vocal rather than.
Oh, cool. Well, yeah, I look forward to hearing it. Yeah, and if you, once again, I mean, anybody, if you've got like follow-up questions or whatever, just tag me in a post on Facebook. I try to do the best I can to get caught up with that every few days. It can kind of get a little overwhelming sometimes, but I do believe I get to everybody eventually. And just let me know. I'd love to hear, if you got questions you think this sounds cooler, you think this sounds cooler. I'm open to that kind of stuff too. So cool. Just know how it goes.
Okay, appreciate your help. Thanks, John.
Yeah. Hey, Bev, how you doing?
Hi, John. How are you?
Great.
You can see me here. Sorry, half a head. I like your new hat.
Hey, thanks. Yeah, this was I don't know if I had told the class, but but I got this for a Halloween tournament, dodgeball tournament where we were Scare Force One, and we were like wearing military stuff. Actually, half of us ended up wearing air traffic control stuff, so our team looked very confusing. Yeah, it was. This is a military hat. I think it's like one of the coolest hats I've ever owned.
It's really nice.
Yeah, it's just like I don't know what it means, but it's. I'll probably get it as soon as this one wears out. It's like I can't believe like how 5-star like.
It looks so sturdy.
Yeah, it's definitely got a look to it. I guess like a golfer, I looked it up just to try to figure out what it was, and there's a golfer like a couple of years back that was that apparently was wearing this all the time on tour or something. Scotty, yeah, I don't know who that is. I don't know anything about golf, but how to like mulligan. That's all I know how to do.
Yeah, mulligan, I know what that is too. Okay, so my question, so this is about cue sheets. I don't know if you saw my message on Facebook, but
no, I don't think so.
Okay, so that it wasn't for you specifically. It's okay. So I've been patiently waiting since last year for my one and only placement that I had last year on a Hallmark movie, right? So I got paid by the supervisor, but I still haven't gotten paid the back end royalties. So I called my pro, which is SOCAN, and they said, well, we don't have the cue sheet. And I felt like saying, what's the cue sheet? Anyway, and so what I did, I looked up the production company. Yeah. I tried to get a hold of them. In the meantime, I contacted the music supervisor, and she said, do not contact the production company. Of course, I had already done that, but they haven't gotten back to me. But anyway, so in the meantime, I had to send SOCAN when it was on, what channel it was on, blah, blah, blah. And anyway, so my question is, do you ever ask for the cue sheet when you get a placement?
Yeah, I mean, I do. Yeah, I mean, I had a couple times where I had to ask for the cue sheet, but I asked in the particular cases, I asked the agency to hit. So yeah. I never have like needed to hit up a production company directly for a cue sheet. It's always been either provided. Sometimes they file the cue sheets for you. Actually, it happens more and more nowadays where they just literally they'll file it for you, and then, or if you have to track it down, you gotta. I feel like that's part of like maybe what you learned there is just like there's a certain aspect to this business where you got to kind of go through the right channels in terms of like, you know, you can't really leapfrog in terms of like sometimes going directly to the source. It can be a little, for whatever reason, it could be, you know, maybe they just don't want. They don't like, maybe the production company doesn't like artists directly going to them for that stuff. They're looking at advisors to ask for that kind of stuff. So I just think it's like, you know, in the future, you'll just like kind of start like at the chain, like where it seems most appropriate. I would probably hit the supervisor up first and then figured out where to go from there. Yeah. But you know, it sounds like it's all going to get sorted out.
Yeah. And not only that, it's a really good learning experience.
Yeah. And
I'm glad it happened because now I'm more aware of how the whole thing works.
I don't think anything you did there was like, you know, that's not something that's even, I mean, I think for somebody who, you know, if this is the first time you're doing that, there's nobody who's going to like, be like, oh God, that's like, you know, totally offensive or something like that. Don't work with Bev. She's a pain. That doesn't sound like, it sounds like you're learning like a lot of people learn when they're first like, you know, doing this kind of stuff, that there's like, you know, just figuring out how it all works. And didn't sound like there was any mistake that was really made there. Just maybe we're being a little territorial or something like that.
Yeah, that must be it. Yeah. Okay.
Got it.
Yeah. Okay. Thanks very much, Sean. I'll just keep that in mind for the next one.
Yeah.
All right. Thank you.
Hey, John, it's Scott. I'm here.
Jump right over. How you doing, man?
Good. I've been quietly listening and enjoying. So, yeah.
Good.
Awesome. Yeah.
Well, yeah. You got anything to say about anything we've been talking about so far, or should we just keep going?
Well, I could geek out for hours and talk about production and reverbs and all kinds of fun stuff, but I enjoy.
I'm sure the class would love to hear your take on reverbs and what makes a reverb cool versus a reverb kind of sound dated and not.
Yeah. Well, you know, I'll offer my 2 cents. Hey, I did want to mention something to Bev and everybody else in that last comment. And John, you hit on the nail on the head. I think the key here too is also as much as we're all trying to get placements and get ahead and move forward, just remember everybody you contact to try to get information about your one placement or two placements, everybody's got 100 emails to answer, 150 things going on. And so they're not actually being rude. They're just, you kind of can't take things personally. You just have to go, okay, well, that's fine. I'll handle it. I'll call my PRO. And, cue sheets don't always show up, sometimes for a year and a half. I mean, I just saw a cue sheet from something that got placed for me for a year and a half ago. I still haven't seen money, but I'm not going to call anybody up unless I don't receive anything literally within a couple of years. And it's just one of those things until things really, really get going. It's really just more about the upfront, and then the back end is just going to be icing on the cake. So yeah, just be patient with all that. But yeah, on to reverbs. So yeah, I agree with everything. The cool thing about reverbs, one of the coolest things, anybody who mixes their stuff, if you get a chance to check out any of Dave Pensato's, help me out, John. What's the name of his? What's his?
Pensato's Place.
Pensato's Place. It is. It's like sitting in a room with a bunch of rock stars in the mixing world, and he brings in the coolest guests, and everybody respects Dave so much. If you're not familiar with his work, just go Google him. He has worked on, I mean, there's probably 6 rock stars in the mix world, and he's one of them. But he's been around a long time, and he's always up to date, and he's always offering information, and then people offer him stuff. One of the coolest things he ever said about reverbs was actually go the next step and put effects on your effects. So like bust in effects on your reverbs and just try a bunch of stuff. And one of the coolest things that I do, it's hard to hear a reverb by itself if you're let's say you're testing it on a vocal. Sometimes if you don't have an ear for it or your ear's not developed yet, you don't always know what you're listening for. But if you turn your vocal off, I'm in Pro Tools, and I always have things going to, let's say, channel 1 and 2. Those are my outs. Everything gets sort of sub-mastered, so I have my vocal sub-masters, my drums, and this and that and the other, but everything ends up going down to your outputs. If you turn off your output, let's just say take it to 3 and 4, which are just dead outputs, you turn that off, your reverb is still going to go to output 1 and 2. So it's reading the signal, so you can actually isolate your reverb and listen to exactly what's going on. And that's where things get really fun, because then you can go like, hey man, let's put a Sans amp on it. Let's put some saturation on the reverb. Let's EQ the hell out of it and just have fun with it. Because there's a million great reverbs, and like John was saying, there's some tricks, there's the slap delays and all that stuff, and sometimes using delays are actually better. I'll use a delay and I won't even use a reverb depending on the vocal. So, there's a lot of fun tricks, and of course we can get into more of that. I just wanted to throw my 2 cents out there on that, because I love this stuff. I love the mixing side. So.
Oh, it's great. Yeah, there's so many tricks you can do with reverbs, and just like in terms of like also just what you subtract out of a reverb, and when it actually comes in. I actually spend more time figuring out when the reverb isn't coming in than actually like on I probably spend more time on that than getting it to come in at the right places.
Yeah.
Side chain compression, or like, I'll just do that. Or like I play around a lot with EQ, making sure that it's not getting in the way, and pre-delay, things like that. There's all kinds of tricks you can use with reverbs to make sure that they're not getting in the way of the power of the vocal and muddying things up.
Yeah. And that's very true, because, you have to be careful with your reverbs, because if you've got, a track that's just suddenly just everything has reverb on it, that's when you're going to run into problems. Some stuff literally has to just be free of reverb. I mean, you don't really need to reverb a bass. You don't really. Yeah, I mean, sometimes if you have a lot of vocals, don't be tempted to put reverbs on everything, because you've got so much spread out. One of the little tricks I do is, especially if I have, let's say I do quads a lot. I'm doing less and less of that these days, because productions isn't calling for a lot of that these days. But when I do, I'm really careful about even putting all those. I pan those vocals if they're quads, meaning there's 4 of the same background vocal. I'll put 2 all the way to the right, 2 all the way to the left, but I'll leave 10% of room for effects. So I'll put them at 90 and 90. You really can't tell the difference. But then if I am going to put effects on the backgrounds, then it allows that little extra percentage for them, a place for that effect to go. It's really minute, but when you start stacking a bunch of vocals, it makes a huge difference. If I choose not to have any vocal or a reverb on those vocals, I'll pan those all the way to the right. So that way they're at least present. EQ'd differently than the lead vocal, of course, but no reverb. And it's just a couple little tricks to just keep in mind when you're working reverbs. It's fun, but don't get carried away, because you'll wonder why your mix is so muddy and you can't get everything loud, and it's a whole crazy art to all of it. So
man, it's so good. All that's really good. It just scratches the surface on all the stuff we could theoretically just talk for probably a couple.
I know. I know. I feel like every time we get on these
yeah.
we get on these calls, I feel like, wait, can we just host a little 2 hours talking about reverbs, and then hey, next week let's talk about delays? And
probably could do that. Yeah, it's just like you're so on point in terms of a lot of it has to do with your tracks have to have dynamics all the way across, and part of dynamics is with the mix itself, and making sure that your mix has width but also has depth to it. And part of the kind of perception of depth comes from reverb and kind of something that sounds like it's further distant off, is what gives your track some depth. And then there's you got to keep kind of the main stuff kind of concentrated towards the center. And then at least a main mixing technique I use a lot is letting the reverbs kind of breathe out towards the sides and touching upon. It's and then having the air over everything. Kind of rooms and all that jazz. But it's so reverbs are super fun to play with. The more you just dive in, you just got to start getting good at doing a couple of things, and then you'll start learning new tricks. And I feel like that's part of just professional level mixing, professional level vocal engineering is just, you'll get some of this stuff down, and then you'll be oh, okay, I know kind of what I'm looking for, and this is how I get it. And then I'm still going to even with all that, I'm still going to keep playing around because there's no rules, right?
Yeah.
So I want to make sure we get enough questions in here. Let's keep moving. So I see this one in the chat. I want to just jump on this one real quick. Lisa says, if working with a producer and just recording your vocal on a track, it's probably best to leave the vocal dry so the producer can make these choices. Yes, I would say, it's probably more important to get the singer in the mood to sing a really good performance. So if the singer sings better and more emotionally true, and it works better dry, I typically find it's better to at least have a basic reverb and sometimes a delay on it. If it's a big track or something like that, it can kind of feel a little out of place in the context of the song to have the vocal be dry, and it's harder for the singer to actually get into it. So I think that's more the decision that's to be made there. Just I feel like it's more important for the singer to get in the mood to sing and do well with that. So it really doesn't matter too much. I would never put effects on there that would cloud my judgment. You definitely don't want to put enough effects on there that cloud the judgment of whether it's a good performance or not. And then sometimes too, if you're going to auto-tune real time, you definitely need to have the effects on completely in order to make sure you're getting exactly what it is that you're looking for. So if you have a really specific idea of the vocal sound you want, you might have to run it through the plugins in order to really know. You might even need a lot of plugins to do it theoretically to really know if you're getting exactly the sound you're looking for. So that's my thought on that one. Hey, Michael, what's up, man? Let's unmute you. Michael Abram.
Hey, how's it going?
Hey, good, man. How you?
Doing well.
Good.
Just got a couple of quick questions. In terms of before you came on, there was a different format for submitting songs, just catching up on the monthly challenges. Some of them I didn't submit before. I'm just curious, is that something as the year comes to an end that we can just send to you directly, or is there another link for submitting old songs?
We're not gonna go back and repost in the drop down from February or something like that.
Yeah.
You can just make a note when you're saying hey, this is for the month of
okay.
Sure, whatever it is, that's fine. That's fine.
Sweet. Okay. And then the second question just has to do with mastering in general. If how often, or I guess to what degree is mastering relevant in terms of the song not being the last stage in the production? Like, does that normally get mastered with, you know, at another level with when it syncs to a film or commercial?
So there's
like how much mastering?
Well, the whole thing with like, you shouldn't master your song because they're going to run it through like a broadcast standards limiter. That's not like something you need to worry about too much. Even if your song is mastered, it's going to be fine. When they run it through the broadcast, they're just not going to need to turn it up as much in the mix because it's already professionally mastered. So shouldn't be an issue for you, you know, but you know, I think like in general, you need to have a mastered version of the song anyways, because like if, for example, you got like a Ford placement or something like that, and it's all over the country for a couple months, you would certainly want to have that song on Spotify and all the other places that people stream. If they want to Shazam it, they're like, oh, that's a dope song. Where do I listen to it? Because that could be a little extra money in your pocket.
Totally.
Yeah. So just make sure that like, you know, you do get it professionally mastered at some point. But, you know, in terms of like whether it needs to be mastered in order to be used or whether it's better to go without, you know, I mean, theoretically, it's better to have every single conceivable version of the song, including all the stems, both mastered and unmastered. But are you ever going to, is that practical? And are you realistically going to need it? No. You just have to focus. For me anyways, it's like focusing on getting the main mixes. And then if I'm running stuff through like analog hardware, I definitely will like bounce stems just because like I might not have the same hardware setup later. I'll run mastered stems. And then that's pretty much what I do when I'm finishing a track up.
Sweet. Yeah. It's out of personal just interest too, of figuring out how to make them sell as full as you can before, you know, passing them off. So I appreciate the discussion on that. Thank you.
Of course, yeah. And you got any thing you want to chime in, Scotty? Feel free, man.
Yeah, no, it was all spot on. It's such a I don't know the word, but that area of mastering, because when you output so many songs, mastering is very elusive. If you don't really understand it, it's hard to really equate why it's important. And people I'd never figured out, like, what does that mean? It's the glue of it glues everything together. Then when you really, really put up your mixes that you're excited about next to the master, somebody who does really quality master work, you get a difference. And that all said, you know, as you gain miles mixing, the practical thing really is they've got a great bunch of tools out there that you can master your own stuff on your master bus. And that really does set it up. But put yourself, like, get away from the mix for a week, then come back and master it, because you'll just find something wrong with your mix and go back in it. You want to get your mix as close to as possible. But then they got, I mentioned this a couple weeks ago, the iZotope music production suite. You know, iZotope is just on top of their game with mastering tools. They're unbelievable. There's a couple in there that will, you know, assist you with vocals that are really good. But then if you want to run the track assistant, I don't recommend it. I recommend really paying attention to your ears, because the tools within this plugin for the mastering, Ozone 9, are fantastic. But you really got to know what you're looking at and sit behind, get your stuff mastered, and ask your mastering engineer if you could actually sit behind them and just kind of be a fly in the wall. Because that's one of the ways that I actually kind of learned. Emily Lazar out there in New York, I had a whole record mastered by her, and it was expensive, but I wasn't paying for it. But I went to New York so that I could watch this girl master and look her up. She's amazing, and she's mastered everything under the sun. But when you really see how they work and all their tools they're working with, you'll begin to understand why it's important. And the whole point of this is just, you know, you can master to a degree by yourself, but I think John was also saying, you know, it's best to get it professionally mastered. I tend to, more of my rock stuff and my organic stuff that uses more raw instruments, I will get professionally mastered. More of that stuff that's really kind of already sliced into your dope sounds already, like in the pop world where I'm programming most of the song, I can throw Ozone up, work with it, and find that I get a decent master just on my own. But, you know, that's my 2 cents. I wouldn't recommend, you know, mastering yourself. It's just if you get to that level where you understand it and you can get away with it, it does help your workflow if you've got a ton of songs you need to get mastered and stems and all this and that. So, yeah, that's about it.
Awesome. Thanks, Scotty.
You're welcome.
Yeah, appreciate it.
Yeah.
Yeah, totally. And sometimes the budget factors into it as well. Like you were alluding to, like with just the volume of stuff you're doing, and can you afford with like if you're cranking out like 8 tracks in 2 months, can you afford to hire a mastering engineer for all 8 of those? Maybe not. So it's always good to know to a certain extent how to fish. It's good to instead of like paying somebody for the fish to kind of learn a little bit by yourself. You'll also get more informed. The better you get at mixing, the better you get at it all glues into each other. So like the better you get at production, the better you're going to get at mixing. The better you get at mixing, the better you're going to get at mastering, because you're going to understand all the different stages and how they all kind of interact with each other. And then as you're working on building a track, you're going to kind of be doing the mixing as you're going along. You're going to be kind of hearing. After a while, I'll start to throw like some of my mastering stuff onto the master bus just to kind of see what it sounds like when it's cranked up a little louder. And I'm kind of like, as I'm cooking stuff, as I'm like creating the track and kind of cooking it all, I'm like kind of seeing, does this sound good? And then I might not even need to send it to anybody. I mean, it might just sound really dope and we're like, yep, it holds up. You can kind of always know if your mastering is on or not by just listening to it based against like other professionally mastered stuff. And if it's like holding its own, then you got to just trust your ears and be like, oh, okay, this is good.
Yeah, that's a great point. I forgot about that. Every song I do, John's always talking about what are you using as a reference? When you put that reference in your session. If you're lucky enough to be doing your own songs yourself, like I do, every single song, there has to be something you're referencing. It doesn't mean that the song ultimately is like that. And of course, like, look, even if you're going for something vintage and you want to throw in an old Beatles song, that's a little getting carried away, but still you want to know, how do I get that old vintage sound? You're never going to know by guesswork. And you're too involved in the mix. It's really, really nice to have that reference track in your session muted, so you can always go up there, solo that out, listen to it for a second, and come back down and tweak. That's usually about the last 5% of my mix. I'm always comparing to whatever I'm working on. Always have a reference mix. It's so helpful. And because when you're working with, especially everything's pushed so much. There are tricks to how that happens, because you'll sit there and you'll pull your hair out going, why can't I get my stuff to sound so loud? That's when it's time to really dig in and learn why and how. And then you'll really start to amaze yourself. And, like John said, you can actually start to really mix with some of those mastering tools on. And if you know what you're doing and looking out for, you'll be able to you'll have your reference, you'll have your kind of mixing and mastering as you're going. By the time you're done, it's done. Move on. It's great. So, yeah.
Yeah, the references can be everything. It's like you gotta be able to compete, but you also, it's like Dave Pensato says, and I've heard him say this a number of times. It's really unfair when you're first starting out to compare your stuff directly to what's commercially on the radio or being streamed on like top 100 lists. It's just really unfair because you're working against like the best of the best.
Yeah.
They know how to get that little extra juice. It's just like, he says you should duck all their mixes by like 3 dBs. That'll give you like a more fair kind of target for where you're going with it. Maybe, it's so like, the broadcast standard, if you run that through like a limiter, it's probably going to give it a little extra juice that it needs if it needs it. But I think it's as with all this, it's like it's stuff that you can, each one of these things is a rabbit hole that you could decide you want to dive down into. I've always found it helpful to understand all the different parts of the process, but I know that there's plenty of people out there that they're like, that's not for me. I want to focus on being really, really good at production. And then I have a mixing partner who does all my mixing. And then I have a mastering engineer. The mixer might be also the mastering engineer, or there might be a separate person that's involved just to more like specialize, so that you can really, at the end of the day, get the best end result, which is a good song. A really highly marketable song. It can sometimes work way better to get people that are involved in your project that are way better than you could be. there might be mix engineers out there right now that are kind of at your level that are learning and growing alongside you in terms of like where you are as a producer, that you could partner up with, and it'd be kind of a win-win. You find some way to cut them in on back end stuff, or you come up with some type of split reasonably between like money that you pay them up front and like stuff that they get on the back end. There's ways to, just as you can negotiate with any producer or songwriter that you want to work with, you can negotiate with mixers and mastering engineers too sometimes. So, you know, you might be able to even trade services. They might need help with like some other aspect of vocal stuff, or you never know, editing something, or, you know, so keep an open mind, because like I feel like that's where some of the magic is too. You don't have to do it all yourself. I feel like the less you do, and the better decisions you make in terms of like who's on your team, the better your projects are going to be, for the most part. Because I think it's really hard to be an expert at everything, and it's also impossible. Like some people just aren't naturally gifted at certain things, which also sets up a roadblock. So I might be really good at producing stuff, but I might not ever have like the skill set that's involved for whatever reason at being like really good at mixing. So I might have to work 4 times as hard at learning how to mix as it takes for me to like do something that I'm like just naturally better at. So that's another thing you got to think about too. It's like, well, am I like really paddling upstream the entire time trying to like get to the place that I feel like I should be, or would it be better for me to just like partner up?
Yeah, that is a great point, everybody. Workflow is key here, and I know that this motif has come up a lot. I know it seems like we're spending a lot of time on this subject, but it's actually really important when you're, you know, what he was saying is it's good to dive in and mix and go for it, but really focus on the songwriting, because there's syncs to be had out there. Where are you going to make your money? In mixing the stuff yourself, or is your time, what's your time worth? You know, I like to think that my time's worth somewhere around $100 an hour. And do I want to slave over some mix that I'm just like, you know, just pulling my hair out? Why can't I get this? No, I've got friends that I can just go, you know what? I'm too close to this. I've produced this as best I can here. Can you mix this? Even though I mix, it's nice to get, and then I can master it if I want to. But you know what I mean? It's really, really good to kind of pass things off, move on. I mean, I have just so many songs in the queue right now that I don't have time to nitpick mixes, and that's where we can really, really get into trouble. So remember that as you moving forward. It's fun to learn all this stuff, but at the same time, keep your priorities where, you know, I think right now everybody really wants to learn how to write and sync, you know, and you know, if you've got the means to pay for some mixers and stuff, then great. If you don't, then just learn your basics, study those videos out there. There's some great courses that a lot of really good cats are offering out there, how to mix, how to master, that if it's worth spending a couple bucks if you have it to do it. But yeah, stay focused on the sync while you're here, and, you know, keep that workflow going.
Ultimately, what are your goals? I mean, honestly, it goes back to like, what are you trying to do? Like, are you setting out to be a mix engineer? Are you setting out to be a mastering person? That might be the open door that could support you through the rest of your life, and you might discover that you really enjoy it. So I do think it's cool to, like, you know, put your foot in this, put your foot in that, see if it's something you like. Who knows? Maybe you'll fall in love with mastering and you'll just be like, I don't even care about sync. I want to master, and I want to become the best mastering engineer on the planet. You know, you never know where this journey could take you. But that said, it's like, if you're getting too wrapped up and spending too much time trying to learn like 20 different things, which it literally takes like learning like 20 different things at a level that's competitive, which maybe even one of those things is really difficult to do and takes years of time to kind of put it together. I think your resources might be better spent elsewhere. So, but yeah, you know, it's a good topic, and I agree, man. I think it's really good. We got to talk about this stuff. This is what these calls are for too. We want to answer a lot of questions, but I feel like for something that's really important like this, it's good to take a little extra time to kind of dive into it, because
yeah.
What you all are paying for is to get this kind of level of you know, detail on all this stuff. So
well, what's really amazing about all of it is that you're all learning is there are so many facets of this business, getting from just an idea in your head to getting it done, and then where to go from there, how to push it, how to pitch it. And I mean, we all got to wear a lot of hats, and I was really fortunate, probably the same as John, to have a lot of these skills in place long before I got into sync. And I couldn't have asked for better, tutors and lessons, but I know that the tools are out there. But it's really just about, with all the technology interrupting us every second of the day, and our families and our jobs, and trying to make a living outside of sync until this is full time, really think about what your priorities are. Set those straight first. And I think everybody wants to learn how to write sync and spend these, I don't know how much time we have left on the 6 months, but spend this time, and even long after, join the Legacy program and stay in touch with all of us. And we do this all the time. We geek out. There's all kinds of forums out there. There's producer sites, and there's all these cool sites where you go to where we have sync stuff in common. And it doesn't matter if we got Rockstar John over here placing stuff every day or, little guys over here going, we're all on this same level of just, we have to keep up with technology. We have to keep up with what's what. And sometimes people come out and say, hey, I've got this brief. And it doesn't matter if John has a million syncs. Maybe he doesn't have something that fits for this, but the little guy over here who doesn't have a sync at all has the perfect thing. But this guy and John both had to figure out how to get there. Like, you can't just dive in. And so just get the priorities and then worry about all the material stuff.
Absolutely. And I would say, like, as somebody who, I wear hats all the time. It's like, and I wear a lot of different hats. It's probably better to have one hat that's really cool and wear it well than to wear like 20 hats that kind of suck. So it's like, I think it's really like, like you were saying, Scotty, if there's one thing you can focus on, maybe even like writing a really good song and then getting the right team around it, or it could be just like learning how to produce. Maybe you already are a producer and you have like the skill set that's competitive, and you can make music that sounds modern. Maybe the key for you is just to focus on the production and then allow like writers that are really, really good, great top liners, great lyricists, killer vocalists, great musicians to come in and just really knock it out of the park. And then you focus mostly on the production, hand off the mixing and mastering to somebody else. That could be another way in which you could get I feel like it's like wearing one hat versus wearing like 4 or 5 of them and maybe not doing as well. But who's to say there isn't value in that as well? Cause I would be lying to you if I didn't say, or if I said that I haven't worn like 20 hats at once and struggled through it. And now I feel like there used to be a time where I wore 20 hats and I didn't feel like I wore any of them well. And now I feel like I wear a few hats pretty well. But it was a lot of struggle for me, like in parts. It was just like a lot of stuff to take in. So I don't want to discourage anybody who's like, damn it, I want to learn it all. I want to be like kind of a jack of all trades. I feel like there's room for those types of folks too. I feel like people that are like that, they bring a different aspect into production, into collaboration, and there's value in that too. But it's, I hear it a lot. It's like focusing on one thing at a time, learning it really well, and then moving to the next thing might be even better. So let's keep going though. So many, such an interesting topic, and talk about this for days, I'm sure. So we saw, do we have any other hands up? Yeah, Allie, I see you there. Let me unmute you. Allie.
Hey, can you hear me?
Yeah, sure can.
Hi. How are you?
Good. How are you?
Doing okay. I just have a quick question. In Pro Tools, are you using just the AAX plugins, or are you using something else to?
I might be totally wrong here, but I think Pro Tools only uses AAX Pro.
It does, but there are options that you can use to plug in VSTs and other plugins into that, which then communicates with your DAW.
Yeah, I know what you're talking about, that there's plugins that can kind of act as like a shell for other types
exactly.
to operate in Pro Tools. Yeah.
Do you use those at all, or?
I don't use them at all. No, I don't. All the stuff that I use is just straight up the plugins. Actually, it kind of sucks. Pro Tools is there's a few plugins that work with Logic that are really cool for like pop production that don't work with Pro Tools at all, just because they don't have an AAX version of it. And they literally say they've gotten to a point now where they're just like, when you go to buy it, they're like, you have to Sausage Fattener is one of them. I wish I could use Sausage Fattener in Pro Tools. I would probably use it all over the place. But it's like one of those plugins where you go to buy it and they're just like, you have to understand that this will never work with Pro Tools.
Yeah.
Don't even ask us. You will never get a refund. But yeah,
exactly.
I have experience with it. Sorry.
Okay. All right. Thanks.
Yeah. You're welcome.
What is Sausage Fattener?
I think it's saturation.
I
from what I understand, they make it, that same plugin manufacturer made another plugin that just looks so cool. It's actually like inspired me to learn how to do Logic actually, because there's some really cool sounds. I can't remember the name of the brand new plugin that just came out from them, but it's one that kind of like, it basically sucks up like everything of it. Let me mute. Cool. Yeah. So feel free, by the way, Scotty, don't mute yourself. I think you can.
Yep.
But yeah, this new plugin that they make, it basically automates that whole like kind of thinning out and making it like small, and then you drop back in with like a big chorus or whatever, a drop. Automates that. I'd really love to be able to use that in Pro Tools, but
wow. Yeah. Okay. Now it sounds a little like Sonic's Inflator. It's a good mastering tool, but check that one out. That's a good one.
Pro Tools thing?
It's actually a UAD thing, so it's cross-platform. So but Sonic's is, that you can buy their plugs. I just like UAD stuff. I just if it's on UAD, I just buy it because I have enough DSP to handle it. But it sounds like it's very. I use it mostly for mastering, but it sounds like something you can use, because I like that idea a lot. See, you just gave a tip. Like, how do you make your drops bigger? Okay,
a lot of that has to do with like making moments. You want to make moments in your songs, and the way that like pros make moments is like this by dynamic changes, and that's like you can anticipation, transitions. These are parts of like creating moments and finding a way to kind of thin out your sound, but like it kind of heightens it too. I think it does, it thins it out, but it also kind of like turns up, it like emphasizes certain frequencies that make it kind of rise up in a way too. It's pretty dope. I'll check out this one that you're talking about. The UAD, somebody was asking a question in the chat I saw earlier about that they had like one UAD. They bought a bundle and they had like one, they could buy any UAD plugin they got for free or something like that. My suggestion with that one would be to get the CL1B, the TubeTech CL1B. It's probably the best vocal compressor I've ever used, and I use it all the time, the hardware version at the Death Star. And, I double up sometimes on when I had them on the same rig. I would double up, like literally put the CL1B plugin as a real-time plugin and then run it through the hardware CL1B. And then bring it in. Just gives it even sounds better. I know it sounds stupid, but it's like, it just even sounds better. It's just the best vocal plugin. It's just so great. But that's just my opinion. Scotty, you're like a UAD guy too. So you probably have an opinion on that. Like if you
I love UAD. Yeah, I haven't used that one. I'm just so into the iZotope stuff right now, and so impressed with the Nectar 3, which is my go-to vocal plugin now, because it just offers so much in one place, where I used to have to really dig through all the EQs and compressors, and I know all the tricks to getting these modern sounds, but when you have one plugin that kind of does it for you, and then I could just tweak from there, it's kind of nice.
I think the question was UAD plugins, because she could pick like one UAD plugin. I don't think.
You're okay. I see what you're saying. I'm sorry. Yeah, I digress. So mean like a vocal, my go-to vocal, or just any UAD plugin?
Any UAD plugin.
Oh God. Well, I would start right off the bat. I work backwards. So I just like to have, when you're creating mixes and sub mixes, so you have your drums going to your drum bus, you have your bass going to your bass bus, your guitar, blah, blah, blah. It's good to have, like, they've got oxide tape. If you want stuff to sound really warm and analog, which everybody's trying to get all the zeros and ones to go back to the 2-inch days, which, that's kind of where I came from. So I know that world and this world. So I know what I'm looking for when I get these. So I always go with, they've got all those analog simulation plugs. So right off the bat, you've got your Studer 800, you've got your oxide tape, you've got your, what is it? The Ampeg 102. Mm-hmm. That's for the master channel. So I just pretty much, I'll kind of start with I won't put it on all the tracks. That gets a little insane, but I would put it on my sub buses and just put each one of those would be my go-tos, is just start there and then work your way down. They've got tons of Neve simulations, all these great, like all the stressors now. They've got Fatsos, they've got all the, the empirical labs kind of stuff. And I mean, yeah, there's so many choices, but I would definitely hone in on getting saturation analog plugs for your mixes to start, if you have a choice. So
Yeah, that's good. I would probably also, I didn't even, I totally forgot that the Distressor is a UAD plugin, and Distressor is an amazing compressor. Compressors are so vital to getting a good professional sound that I just think that, you know, I agree. I think the tape saturation stuff is great. I use other ones that are like cheaper. I actually don't have as much DSP, and I also work in 2 different places, one of which doesn't have the UAD stuff at all. So
yeah, well, and that's why it's cool. I don't know if I can even get this up, but no, they've got those satellites, and because I have to toggle back and forth. I'm always in my writing room when I'm talking to you guys, but I've got another studio 5 miles away that's my bigger room, and I track drums there and horns and all kinds of crazy stuff. But I wouldn't be able to survive without my satellite, and the satellite is just a little piece of hardware that allows you to have all the DSP for your UAD. So, you know, I'm just such a fan of UAD. All my IOs are UAD. Everything's UA, you know, but I've been a fan because like Pink Floyd recorded the records, Beach Boys recorded the records on UA stuff. So I've got, you know, hardware that's UA. So I'm a huge UA fan. It's just the warmth on that is, unless I can afford Neves, that's my next go-to, you know. So yeah, but I get that satellite, and I take that with me everywhere, and that covers it. You know, I don't ever even run out of DSP anymore. So
yeah. Oh, and so the thing that's great about the UAD stuff too, I'm seeing people mention a couple plugins that are actually included in the I believe one of the Neve simulations is actually included with whatever the classic bundle is that they.
Oh, really? Wow.
They give you something. I'm not sure if it's a Neve one or if it's they give you the 610. I think they give you they give you an LA2A. You get an 1176. Those 2 plugins I use like all the time.
Yeah.
And when I'm not at this setup, I use like Waves versions of those. They're just like really great compressors to have.
Yeah. Waves, they have, you know, they do have halfway decent. And, you know, all these plugs, I wait for those sales, Black Friday sales, because UAD is really expensive. So it's taken me years to build up my collection.
Yeah, you're not gonna, unless you want to drop like, I think it's like $6,000 for like, or I might even be more free plug from UAD, which you will never be able to use all the time at the same time anyways. But
yeah. I know, I was just about to hit the button and buy this, like, hey, this is what you don't have. And, you know, and then the geek in me is going, and then I really pulled them all apart and said, do I really need this? Do I really need?
I'm that way with FabFilter right now. Right now, I'm getting very close to the place where the price point to get everything is like getting lower and lower and lower just because I keep buying them.
Yeah. UAD plugs or food?
I know for a fact I'm going to be buying more FabFilter stuff coming up soon. FabFilter is one of my favorite companies, and I know for a fact I'm going to be buying some more of their stuff. And
yeah, I know you mentioned Saturn and some cool stuff that I've got to look into because
Saturn's great. I really want their compressor, and I really want the de-esser too. I want both of those. Those are the 2. They have a limiter too that I would probably want, but that's kind of lower priority for me. I love the Gate plugin. Their Gate plugin is amazing. I use it so much. It's like the easiest to use Gate I've ever seen.
Oh yeah, I need a better Gate than the Pro Tools stock. Gate.
Oh no, after you use Gate, you won't go back.
Everybody's gonna hate us because we're geek talking about all this stuff.
No, all this stuff is actually super important when it comes to sync, getting a good professional sound. I don't see any hands up either. So, but
you know what? There was one question. Jamie was asking something about 10, 15 minutes ago that I thought I'd bring it up. She was asking about. She pitched a song to a friend that is a supervisor, and they want the song. And it's been a week, and she wants to know how to kind of politely ask her. She's a friend, so she doesn't want to intrude, but at the same time, or she's a supervisor because she doesn't want to intrude, but she's a friend, so she's torn. She doesn't really know how to handle it. And, you know, John, you can put in your 2 cents, but my 2 cents, it kind of comes back to what I was saying. Remember, even your friend has a gazillion things going on as soon as she clocks into work, she's got a million emails. She's got a lot going on. It probably behooves you that she's a friend and you could reach out. Normally our advice is not to follow up and say, you know, hey, did you hear my song? But A, she's a friend. B, she already said that she wants the song for a show. So you're kind of already in. So I wouldn't worry too much because then you're going to let that cloud everything. Just politely just go, hey, listen, I know that you're busy. Just let me know how we can move forward on the song. She's a friend. Why not?
I agree. I totally agree with everything Scotty just said there. I mean, I have nothing to add.
Perfect.
Yeah. So Sheila asks if we're planning on doing another work tape session. So that was just a special one-off session that we did for the August cohort to give them a little extra support when they're starting to write stuff for sync. So we're not planning on doing any additional like work tape sessions. We're always going to be doing the weekly listening hours where we're listening to tracks that, for the most part, we want these tracks to be recorded. They could be a little rough, but we definitely don't want to be screening, for the most part, any work tapes, anything that's just like turn on the phone and sing into it. We're more looking for like stuff that's a little more polished for that, so to learn from that aspect of things. So we're not at any time like in the future planning on doing those like regularly, but as always, if you want feedback on your work tapes, please tag me and just like share it with the group. Because the group's going to give you a lot of support. They're going to be able to give you some cool perspectives on things. And then, and I do my best, I promise you, I do my best to respond to every single person who tags me in something, even if it takes me a few days. I'll definitely give it a listen and then give you my 2 cents on it. So, we definitely want to give you as much support as we can, but it's not something we're going to be doing every week. So, and we're probably not planning on doing another one of those I'm not sure we're going to do another one exactly like we did when Chris came and joined us, which was super fun. She's great. She's going to be coming, it looks like she's going to be joining us for Sync Keepers in February. So you'll get a chance to meet her in person if you'd like. Super cool person. She's one of my favorite producer friends. Yeah, listening hours is in like 45 minutes. So we got another 15 minutes of this, then we'll take a little break and get right back to it with the Zoom thing. We'll listen to some songs, give you some feedback, and it should be fun. Let's see, any other questions? I don't see any hands up. Let me see, we got any other questions in the chat that I haven't seen yet? Yeah, Bev, like I was saying, it was certainly not a class just for production. Scotty and I are both producers, but we're also writers, and we also both hustle our butts off when it comes to like pitching and landing stuff. And so, we're here available to answer any questions that you have. So if you got a question that's more related to something else, some other aspect of Sync, just post it in the chat or raise your hand and we'll get to it if we have the time here. Any preference between Universal Audio or Apogee? I've never used an Apogee, but I've never used Apogee interfaces, but they get good reviews, and a lot of people say it's like a toss-up between getting like an Apogee, getting a Duet, and getting like an Apollo Twin. And I believe that Apogee has like a set of plugins that kind of come with it, but I'm not sure exactly what that all entails. UAD has great plugins that you get a bundle usually when you buy their interface. So, I mean, I would say it's probably a toss-up. I think that the Apogee comes in at a slightly lower price point. I'm not 100% sure on that though. You got anything to say to that about that, Scotty?
Yeah, I mean, I said it kind of 5 minutes ago. I love UA. I'm UAD. I'm just such a fan. I used to use Apogee a long time ago, so I don't follow them. So it would be kind of unfair for me to compare the two, but I'm just so happy with, I never have problems. They're so clean, and they just keep coming out with cool stuff. I mean, it's just, I have a mobile rig that I take everywhere. I'm going out of the country in a couple weeks, and I'm bringing my little Apollo Twin with me, and it's just the preamps in that thing, and for the cost and the IO, and, now they're making them with talkbacks, and they're making them with 4 channels and lots more DSP. It's just, they're superior in my opinion to everything out there. And they come with a bunch of their stock plugins, which is really, really helpful. And you can record. There's a small learning curve, but you can actually record with these plugins now. So you don't have to go out and spend a bunch of money on, a lot of hardware. You just get this little unit. And when you learn how to use their, what's it called? It's their console. That's software that comes with every UAD module. And so you can actually put one of the plugins, let's say you like the 6176, you like some of that new stuff. Not only do they dial each one of those plugins to sound exactly like the old piece of hardware, but now you can record with it. You just push a little button and you actually record through it. So you can record with compression, which I recommend for everybody farming out vocals. stop sending uncompressed vocals, but learn how to use it. But that's the thing, is you can now have access to all these things. So UA, just in my opinion, is so worth the cost, and you're just getting something really special right off the bat, and you don't have to spend a lot of money.
Great. Yeah. So Josh asked, what are the rules for listening session? How often can we submit? So yeah, you can submit one song at a time. We post every week to all the groups the link for submitting songs for the listening session that happens each week. We handle it first in, first out. We split the priority amongst the groups, so all the different groups get some love in terms of like having their songs spun. And yeah, if you submit more than one song, I always check to see if there's like multiple songs being submitted. We just play the most recent one that you submit. So, and as far as like the queue, right now we're pretty backed up. So anything you submit, it's gonna be a while before we get to it. But the one thing I want to say about the listening session, and I say this every week, is that it's not about having your own song heard. You're going to learn so much just by listening to everybody's work. You're going to hear people that you could collaborate with. You're going to be like, yes, I want to work with this person. This person has awesome skills as a producer. This person's an awesome lyricist. Maybe I can partner up with them. Maybe you find out they're in your neighborhood. It's about connecting with other people, learning from everybody's process. And then if you need like more individualized feedback, that's what the Facebook groups are for. The listening session is not meant as like making sure that every single person has like personalized feedback in a public format, like in front of the whole group, like by me and whoever else is joining me on the call. So it's more about like learning through the experience of others, and as well, like eventually everybody who submits something on there is going to get their song listened to, but it's just first in, first out. So, and as with the volume of songs we have, it's just and plus, I want to be able to give a little bit of detail when it comes to the listening session. I want to be able to like listen to a fair amount of the song and be able to give like a certain amount of depth to my take on it that isn't just like, oh, I think this is great, I do this, and then move on to the next thing. I think we need to have a little more focus on the detail with it. So it does take some time, and we get through quite a few songs every week, but it's something where I feel like it's in a pretty good place in terms of the depth, but just, you can let us know if you don't like the way that it's currently formatted. We're open to suggestions. Let us know.
Hey, I'm going to throw my 2 cents in there just because it's important. That John really made a good point. I never even submitted my songs for listening session because I didn't want to get caught up in that feeling like, oh, I'm not getting my songs. I got so much out of critiques, just hearing where, wow, there's crazy. Barbara, are you,
Sounds like somebody's got some construction going on there. I muted everybody. Go ahead, Scotty, and unmute yourself if you'd
okay,
like.
I'm good. So anyhow, you'll get so much more, because I know a couple of people. I'm only bringing this up because I've actually watched some of the forums. I'm listening, even though I don't always comment. I'm always in the background checking things out. And a couple of people have seemed to get really upset because they're not getting their songs heard. And remember, it's not about that. Yes, it's good, but then remember this: by the time John gets to your song, he's one person that's judging your song and giving you really good critique. And look, not all of our songs work, you're always going to get good, solid advice, but it's always good to get a collective advice, pass it around to people as you guys are learning stuff. You'll be able to start realizing if everybody is patting you on the back saying, hey, great job, that's really great. But you'll start to get some solid people saying some things about your songs. It just, stay involved and try to put it up to the class more than just having John listen to it. You know what I mean? And I've even had the pleasure of listening to a couple songs that you guys post, and I'll offer my feedback when I can. It gets really busy for me as well, but I really do want to help out as much as I can. So there's all kinds of outlets, but don't get too caught up in John not hearing the song, because there's so much to learn from all these songs being listened to. Really pay attention to those listening sessions and apply them to your writing and your music and your productions and go from there. Yeah, that's just my 2 cents.
Thanks, man. Yeah, that's all we're trying to do. We're trying to do the best we can to help everybody, and we do have a large, abundant group of really talented folks, and it's all I'm trying to do every week is make it the best possible experience for everybody. So as always, we're open for any feedback you got, but this is the format for now. And yeah, just let us know. And the other thing too, the only rule is, like I said, I would really prefer that they not be just work tapes. I'd prefer that they be songs that the production has started on them. Even if it's just like, you know, you get a few things going and you have a question about like what might be a cool direction for it, that might be a good thing to use the listening session for. You know, I think that would be more useful in terms of like what the intended format is for the listening session. Because we also like occasionally Catch the Moon will sign songs that we hear on the listening session. So it's an opportunity if you have a song that's like really ready and you feel like really is ready for consideration for potentially Catch the Moon pitching, you know, we're going to be screening that stuff and we're always on the lookout. Believe us, and believe me too, like, you know, when we hear stuff that is really, really good, even if we just see it in the group, we do listen. Even if we don't comment every single time, we're always listening for like stuff that's awesome. And so if you make something that's awesome, it's going to be really hard for us to not hear it. And then we're probably going to be hitting you up if for some reason it doesn't get played in the listening session. So just kind of take some of that stress off yourself. It's really shouldn't be a stressful situation from you. And then I'm sure you'll learn a ton whether your song gets streamed or not. As is the case with like all the calls that we have where we bring these guest experts in that are amazing and they screen a few songs. It's always very helpful even for me, and I've been in this for a little while to hear their perspective on things. So, you know, let's hear what else we got. Accordion on the floor.
Yeah, thanks. Who noticed that I had an accordion? No, I don't play. My wifey, she is the rock star of this house, man. Like, it doesn't matter how much I act like I know. She is the one writing hits. And she's all the way in Thailand right now, jumping off buildings and being a crazy stunt woman. And that's where I'm going to go in a couple weeks, is join her in Japan. She's just, I mean, and she kills me because she's doing all that and she's like throwing songs my way that I can't keep up. Like, babe, I got a queue of 12 songs of stuff that we got to finish. So what are you doing? She's amazing. She just she's always top lining. She's always busy, always thinking about this stuff and helping me out when she can. So yeah, she's the rock star. She plays the accordion.
Training, hang on a second. Let me just decline that manager calling. All right. So we got any other questions? We got about 5 minutes left, and then we'll move on to the listening session here in about a half an hour. Let's see. Any other last questions today? Anybody got anything?
I got a question. Where did you get your raised desk? Where that's on my list of bucket list.
Uplift.
Oh, okay. I've looked at them before. Uplift?
It's great. I love this desk. I think it's like one of the best purchases I've ever made in my life. But I will also just throw in that putting this desk together was like probably whatever Dante's like 17th layer of hell. It was I am a ninja.
It was like an IKEA thing. You had to put it together yourself.
Ninja when it comes to like putting stuff together in IKEA. Like, I'm an expert when it comes to putting furniture together, and I exhausted every single piece of profanity in the English language. Together. It was not a pretty sight, but I got it together. It feels really sturdy. It's well built. It was a nightmare putting it together. It's not easy to put together at all. So see if you can maybe you could even say that to them when you go to buy it. You could say, hey, my friend says that this thing's a like total nightmare to put together.
I will.
You might be able to get an extra discount.
Yeah. Okay. Thanks.
All right. Any tips on figuring out reference songs when we're creating our own? Okay, cool. Well, I would say whatever music, when you're creating your own, I think that it should be maybe the other way around, that you've picked the references and then create based off of that versus the other way around. Like, the mentality should be, you know, perhaps what kind of song am I trying to make, pick the references and then go from there, versus like if you start to write a song trying to then think about like what your references are, it might be because like the songwriting is so important in really putting your song in the right bucket when it comes to like your reference. To get it in the ballpark of the reference, your top line kind of needs to be like lock and key with like kind of like the standards, like kind of what people are expecting in the sandbox of whatever your genre is. I feel like that's like a better way to go about it, at least mentally and process wise, to make sure that you're like on target all the way. You got anything to say about that, Scotty?
Yeah. I think along the same lines, you know, a lot of us can wear a lot of hats and create different songs. But if you're an artist that really is focused, let's say you're just Americana, and you hear something that was really inspiring as you're listening and doing your research and actually listening to the music on these commercials or your TV shows, that's where you just go, oh, okay, iSpot, or, you know, do your, you know, your TuneFind thing, find out who's the artist and go from there. Like, take the song that really, because that song has been placed. So it is generating money. It is doing something right. And that's where that's really the platform right there. Then you can throw it into your session or really compare it and write something along those lines. You know, you don't want to plagiarize anything, but a lot of times in sync, you can break those rules. You know, when you're an artist, you don't want to copy anything. You run that risk of infringement, but at the same time, in sync, you can get pretty damn close and not worry, because they are looking for alternatives. You know, there are always, there's hot artists out right now. I mean, there was a time when Portugal the Man had that song out and everybody wanted a song. Right now,
looking for it. They're still looking for that song. And they'll be looking for that song for the next, like, probably, who knows, maybe 20 years. Such a weird song, so weird that it was as big of a hit as it was. And it's very unique sound of that time, like a couple of years ago or whatever. Yeah, exactly, man.
Yeah. Take those songs and run with it, you know, and that's a great place to start.
Yeah, it's Feel It Still. I'm a rebel just for kicks. Yeah, you know that song. Man, I was just looking in the chat here. There's actually a challenge to use as many elements as the reference and still sound like you. That's the trick. Yeah, I mean, you obviously have to make it your own, but at the same time, when they're looking for alts for stuff, it has to be pretty close. You know, that's the trick, is like using their elements pretty closely, but then writing something top line wise that won't get you in trouble, I think is sometimes the trick.
Yeah, and this is to just kind of drive that point home. You know, Bev, I know you had some concern because you're like, well, maybe we should kind of split up the production and the writing. This is why it's really important to talk about some of this production, especially because a lot of us in here are producers and writers. It might be a little boring to talk about some things more than others, but it's important to pay attention because, like John said, for me, I have to go in. If I'm going to use a song as a reference and there's something that's pressing that I'm supposed to write like an artist, like I said before, I just got done with a Billie Eilish track. That is no joke production. You have to go in and study what the hell Phineas is doing, her brother, and he's producing all the songs. And you can't just throw that up in a reference track and just go. You have to study this production in order to come close. And there's a lot in that Portugal the Man song. I haven't even started. I've already got something on deck to do, but it's been on deck for a year. And of course I've had some complications, but you know, I plan on diving in because that is something that people are still looking for, but really pay attention to the production as well as the writing. It's kind of a double whammy. You can't just, you know, expect to write something or get a producer on board that gets it, that gets what you're looking for, a good sync producer.
One thing to keep in mind when you're doing an alt is kind of thinking about like how many alts are already out there for something. I would argue that like right now, not to deflate your balloon, Scotty, or anything like that, but right now would probably be a bad time to do an alt for Feel It Still, just because there's like so many alts out there now for that.
Oh yeah.
So it's like typically when you're doing alts, you want to kind of do alts that are kind of on the edge of where things are like right now. Yes. Because it's like, you know, every single month that passes by, whatever was hot like a year ago gets less and less relevant. Not to say there won't be opportunities to pitch. And I'm sure if you have like a really killer alt for Feel It Still, you know, there's probably going to be opportunities for you in years to come. But I think that the bar gets set a little higher and there's a lot more competition. So you want to kind of set yourself, and to a certain extent, there's like a certain odds with it too. And you want to kind of make the odds in your favor if you can. And it's one of those ways you can kind of help yourself is by picking references that are super modern and super relevant and actually like released very recently is also great. You know, something that's really cool and it was released like a month or two ago. Because it takes time sometimes too for like the corporate types to really catch up to like what's cool in music. Like a lot of the people that are in these boardroom meetings, they're not They're not music supervisors. They're people who they might have be very passionate about music and have opinions about it, but it might actually take a little while for that music to kind of trickle down to them and to kind of get into their head and be like, yeah, oh, that's really cool. Even though that might be like 6 months old. And everybody else is already like way onto it. It might take them a little while longer to kind of catch up. The bigger the company, you know, from what I hear, the bigger the company, the longer it kind of takes them to kind of catch up. But as always, it's like the more modern, more relevant you can be, the quicker you can respond with your alts. I think it's going to be a better decision.
Yeah, and he brings up a good point, because I do want to be careful. I don't want everybody to suddenly go out and do a cover like a closed version of Portrait of a Good Man. I was kind of half joking, because the reason why his song is still in my queues, because things keep coming up that are more important and more relevant. So kind of just, it's an old trite saying, but strike when the iron's hot. You know, whatever's hot right now is what people need. And it's always good to have stuff on your bucket list. And if you have time, then go for it. But also, don't get away from the fact that there are a lot of companies out there looking for innovative artists. That's how Sophie Tucker got discovered on Apple. Apple's always looking for new artists. You land an Apple commercial, you're set. And they want to be pushing artists, and they want to be pushing innovative songs. You pretty much anything that they put out, if you go to just iSpot and look up Apple ads, they're all different. They don't sound like anything. So, you know, don't get away from the fact that, I mean, you want to reference as much stuff, and just, it's part of the research. Like, what are people doing? A lot of times I might write something just because I know what themes work really well. That's another thing. Like, you may not need a reference. I can reference a production. So I'll do a Sophie Tucker type production, because, you know, they keep getting songs played. You know, there's a lot of great artists. Danger Twins is another one that constantly putting new content out. Listen to what they're doing. But you don't have to go for that sound. Just kind of pay attention. That's part of the research of everything. So this is all encompassing and very important for y'all to know. There's a million ways to do this. It's just we're trying to guide you into the best way to do your research first. Hone in on what you want to write about. Don't get too overwhelmed, and just, you know, go for it. You know, the more you practice, the better you're going to get at this.
Yeah, and we're giving you so many opportunities in terms of like letting you know what's being used, what's in need. We're asking for stuff. It's like we're helping inform your decision. Then we bring in guests that like also help. Like I make it a point every single guest to ask exactly what it is that they need right now, what's hot, where they see things going, and so you get all kinds of intel there too. So these things kind of in combination with what Scotty and I are telling you, and what you learn overall in the course is going to help you to make these decisions that you need to make when you're deciding, well, where am I going to invest my resources? Yeah, so unfortunately, that's all the time we got this week for the office hours, but as always, great questions. Definitely come armed with your questions next week. We had it seems like every week we have some lulls in like the people raising their hands. Don't be shy. Promise we won't bite. And we'll love hearing your questions. Love hearing your questions about production, everything from songwriting to pitching, production, all of it. It's all related to sync. And yeah, I'll check you out here in just a sec here. About 25 minutes, we'll be doing the listening session. And yeah, not sure if Scotty's joining us, but thank you so much. Thank you so much, Scotty, for joining
Always.
office hours, and hopefully next time.
Yeah, I got to be honest, Wednesdays are some of the toughest days. I really wish that they were split up somehow, but I know probably it's easiest for you to know that you have back to back. But I unfortunately, one of these days I'll surprise you.
Great, man.
I got to work today though.
Oh, good. We'll get some stuff done. Hope everybody gets some really good stuff done, including you, Scotty. So
thanks, man. Likewise, brother. Yeah, I love this. You guys, it's good to see you all. I'm sorry I missed you last week. There are going to be a couple little lulls here coming up, but I'm going to stay on as much as I can. I appreciate people reaching out where they need to, and you all know that I'll help where I can. I'm not on the forums as much. I do look, and I try to answer as much as I can and respond and do loves and likes and this and that. But
you're such a wealth of information, but much more importantly than that, you're just a good human being, and so like we're very lucky to have you as part of this, and we'll see you next time.
Okay, brother.
All right.
Bye.
See you later.